that you need to win the support of quite a number of countries. We're looking at 51 plus, countries in the continent, but you have a threshold. It's not a walk in the park, as some analysts would say. What are your opening remarks this far, especially anticipating the unveiling tomorrow? But first, welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much, Anki. Tomorrow will actually be our, I think, the greatest day. It is the day now, maybe we can say, let the chips fall where they may. So it is the day that we will know in East Africa who are with us. And this will go in terms of, I've heard people talk of, if there is no president coming and we have a representative, then it's a signal. But in my view is that in diplomacy, any representation is a signal enough. If you are not interested, then you do not come. But I'm saying, I think in my view, if East African leaders, as it is expected, come tomorrow to attend the unveiling, in fact, of Kenya's candidate, then it will be a very strong voice, given that this is a time for East Africa.
All right. Yes. We hope that they all actually turn up. And let's also follow closely what the Ambassador Erastus Mwencha has to say. He's joining us virtually, really. He's the former deputy chairperson of the AUC. We are very honored to have you. And I'm curious, because following the elimination process, if these particular candidates do not meet the given thresholds, we're looking at about 34 in your favor out of the 50, or the 31 out of the 51 countries. So we are seeing if neither of them meets the threshold, we have, one eliminated in each phase, if I'm correct, and the next and the next. But if neither of them, even after there are two in the race, we go back to a whole new round. Welcome to this particular broadcast, Ambassador. Could you please educate us, having served in there, what kind of race are we looking at, and how tight is it, even looking at the candidates already presented to us this far? Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Just one or two minor observations. The first one is the candidate you mentioned, Gayan, is not from Mauritania, is from Mauritius. And another one, this is a turn for Eastern Africa, not East Africa.
Right.
Eastern Africa has 14 countries. East Africa is 7 countries.
Correct.
So I wouldn't expect 14 heads of state and government in town. I think the first line of support is to come from East African community. And if you get that, it's good support for Eastern Africa. And so that is the minor correction I thought I would make. The question you ask about the processes, yes, since there are 4 candidates, they would normally start voting all of them. I mean, having ballot paper for all of them. And the election is done by all heads of state and government present. And they vote depending on the preferences. And the last candidate is dropped out after 3 rounds. And that process continues until you are left with 1 candidate. And that 1 candidate still must go through the election to attain 2/3. If that 1 candidate remaining does not achieve 2/3, then another election is called. It means the election has not succeeded. Yeah, so that process is, even if you are 2, I remember some time back, you can even go to 5 rounds, even if there are 2 candidates. So it takes quite a while to arrive at 1 and eventually leave 1 standing. And that 1 standing must go through elections until that one gets 2/3.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador, for that correction. It's important, and that's why we have you here, having served right inside that particular commission to get facts right. Now, I'll come back to you shortly, because it's also important. Someone was asking on a light note, do you think Raila Odinga will enjoy some injera? having to be in that position on a light note, really, because this is not just, you know, a job you go, you know, for fun. It comes with a lot of other sacrifices. Just perhaps if you could share with us what particular, because AUC or AU, as a matter of fact, has its own policies that guides it, even at the continental level. What do you think Raila Odinga and his team, and Kenya for that matter, ought to observe very keenly at this point?
Yeah, I think in an ambassador, thank you, actually it's Eastern Africa, you know, larger part up to down there. And as you say, you know, Raila Odinga is a Pan-Africanist. And Injera, as you say, you know, in other words, it means that Ethiopia is home to him as the capital, the political capital city of Africa. But then we are looking at this, you know, the threshold you talked about, and maybe Ambassador served there, I think, was it 2 times, an extension of 34. And as we are told, you know, even if you are alone and you do not reach that, then it is postponed and taken long process. But in my view, I think as we plan Raila's program, I'm seeing several things, you know, emerging around him that some I would see them, I talked elsewhere about this race appears to be steeplechase, you know, it has hurdles and those pools to jump over. It's not the marathon. And some of them that our candidate might be facing, which have people have risen, you know, some have said, you know, the issue of age, and that's what you're alluding to, you know, AUC chairperson is a CEO, and he must be hands-on and is a very busy, you know. At one time we were told that, I don't know whether Ambassador will confirm that the life of the chair at 7 in the morning, he might be chairing a meeting in Addis, and then around 11 he's in Kenya attending a climate summit. Then he'll be from Kenya moving to New York, maybe in the morning to following day to have a meeting with the Secretary General. So it's something that will require total attention from the chairperson and a lot of energy. But then on the other side, you know, Kenya expects that, as I say, we are looking for a visionary leader. And we are looking for a leader with experience. And at one time, you know, we had a debate, to give you a story, that... a
very brief story, so that we can hear from Ambassador.
There was a debate that Africa is full of, especially the panel of the wise. You know, the question was, why do they have elderly people there? And the answer was that, you know, in that context, is going to deal with high-level people, and you cannot have a young person going to talk to maybe the president of South Sudan or the generals in Sudan. So it's a matter of experience and wisdom in the African context. So,
I want to come back to you because we're going to have a second part of this conversation, gentlemen, if you allow me. But Ambassador, the age factor is coming in. However, if you have gone through Raila Odinga's 8-point vision for Africa, I don't know what you might have to say about it. Is speaking on gender equity, financial, you know, independence, and intra-Africa trade, uniting the continent, rather, among other things, which we'll look at later on. In the way he is placing himself, in just a minute before we move on to other, you know, developments, what do you think? We're in the right trajectory this far?
Yes, I have looked at his campaign. The way it was launched, the manifesto that he has prepared for the campaign, and the way he has gone about to meet heads of state on a one-to-one basis, that is how the campaign goes. The points that have been raised by my colleague, you know, some of them just mentioned one that, yes, it's a very demanding job, but it's no different from being a head of state, because if you imagine a head of state in any country, their job is 24 hours. So is the chairperson of the African Union because of the nature of the job. And only recently, the Kenyans were trying to vote him to be president of the Republic of Kenya. So I wouldn't see it very different from that of chair of the African Union. And indeed, he is right in mentioning that From the beginning, if you realize that the first chair of the commission was President Konare, in their wisdom, heads of state and government, and as he rightly mentioned, needed somebody that can be able to dialogue at their level, to be able to reach a head of state, and somebody who has served at a senior position like that, which the Right Honorable Raila Mora Odinga has done. And so, yes, I think he fits the bill. And the rest, I think, we leave to the wisdom of the heads of state and government to check their chemistry to him, because it is the chemistry comes in. I mean, I speak this from experience because, and also how you are surrounded by support that you get, because not all heads of state and government may get to know you, but there's a lot of canvassing, and once they get to know what you stand for, your values, and I think, to me, stands up to the task.
All right. So, of course, you're saying it's very important to check on the chemistry. And the job that he is going to be doing is not, according to Ambassador here, very different from what the head of state is doing or is, of course, designated to do. Gentlemen, allow me to take another very key story here. And remember, this conversation remains. We will still pick it up again with the very key voices. But Meru residents took to the streets today.